Prompts should be clear and concise. So I asked Bard and ChatGPT about this, and here is what they said. So in order to make Bard prompts more clear and concise, we should be specific. So for example, don't just say, write me a poem. Say, write me a poem about the beauty of nature. So it's a specific type of poem. It's about nature, and more than that, it's about the beauty of nature. So that's specific. All right, secondly, use key words. So basically use nouns that are more specific and more concrete. Nature, beauty, poem. Avoid jargon and slang, I guess, would fall into this category. Use complete sentences. Don't use sentence fragments. And proofread your prompt. So grammar, spelling, these things will be helpful. So what is an example of a prompt which is not clear? Write me something creative. All right, that's very vague. All right, a clearer one would be write me a poem about the beauty of nature. Write me something funny, write me something interesting, write me something thought-provoking. Those are not clear, they're not specific enough. So we need to be more concrete rather than abstract. It's kind of a fundamental law of writing, right? Any book that you read about writing says, show, don't tell. As my wife would often tell me, be more concrete, be less abstract. That is what Bard and ChatGPT need as well. All right, what's an example of a Bard prompt which is not concise? This is really interesting. I would like you to write me a story about a young woman who goes on an adventure to find her lost father. She travels to a faraway land and meets many interesting people along the way. She eventually finds her father and they are reunited. It's too long and detailed. It would be better to shorten the prompt. Write me a story about a young woman who goes on an adventure to find her lost father. Now this is what made me laugh. These are not concise because it's asking for a poem that's at least 100 lines long, or a marketing plan that is at least 100 pages long. Now what's interesting about this is that the prompt itself is very concise, but the problem is that the output that's requested is not going to be concise. So I think it's interesting that there's some ambiguity about an equivocation, right? In that the prompt is actually concise, but it's considered to be not a concise prompt because the output requested is not concise. All right, let's go on to ChatGPT. All right, so again, ChatGPT, as in some previous examples, it gives more of a how-to step-by-step. So to make the prompts more clear and concise, specify your desired output. Specify your desired output. Use bullet points or numbered lists. That's interesting. Have to try that sometime. Ask direct questions. Provide context. Once again, we see the importance of context. But also avoid unnecessary details, irrelevant details. Make sure to stay focused on the main thing you're asking for. Break down complex tasks. So I wonder if what this means is just to split the prompts across multiple inquiries. In other words, don't try to put it all into one prompt, but ask one thing and then another thing and then another thing. And then proofread and revise your prompt. So avoid redundant words, clarify ambiguous phrases, and ensure that your prompt conveys your intentions clearly and succinctly. So I wanted to drill down a bit into what I view as Bard's equivocation over conciseness of a prompt. All right, and just to review, it said it says that this prompt is not concise. Write me a poem about the beauty of nature that is at least 100 lines long. I would say that that is a concise prompt because it's relatively short, but it is asking for a verbose response. So here's my conversation. So first I asked whether there's any ambiguity, and Bard says that that question is not ambiguous, although there might be some ambiguity in the definition of concise. Right? So concise and verbose it's on a continuum, and it could be different for different people. So it still wasn't giving me a good answer as to why it would say that the prompt was these prompts were not concise. So then I asked it to define a Bard prompt, and it clearly says that it's a short piece of text that is used to generate a response. And then I said, well, define a Bard response. It's a piece of text generated by Bard in response to a prompt. And then I said, explain the difference between a Bard prompt and a Bard response. And so it gave a definition, and then it gave an example. Here's the prompt. Write me a poem about the beauty of nature. And then it gave a response. All right, so clearly it understands the difference between a Bard prompt and a Bard response. And then finally, I asked what is the opposite of concise. And it gave an example. The cat sat on the mat versus the feline, which was of the domestic variety, situated itself upon the woven floor covering that was located in the immediate vicinity of the piece of furniture known as a mat. It's very verbose. And Bard prefers concision. It is best to use, in general, it is best to use concise language whenever possible. And finally, I asked, can Bard produce a verbose response to a concise prompt? And so this is maybe the problem, right? Why it was discouraging me from asking for a ton of output. It is important to note that Bard is not always able to generate verbose responses that are clear and easy to understand. Sometimes Bard's verbose responses can be difficult to read and understand, and they can often be boring. So I think maybe that's the real issue, is of why we shouldn't ask for extremely verbose output.